Wow, wow, wow. Marvel Studios is having a rough go of it lately, with underperforming content, one of its major executives being fired, and then a super crazy scandal surrounding Jonathan Majors, who frankly, Marvel probably shouldn't have built the entire multiverse saga around.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
But as bad as things are, it seems like they might be getting worse. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 box office tracking is looking pretty bad. And I was talking about this on stream the other day, and I was absolutely shocked when I did a poll, and 50% of the people watching that live stream said they will not be seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 opening weekend in the movie theater. I couldn't believe it. I mean, honestly, it's crazy because the audience that watches our live streams are super nerdy. These are folks that normally would definitely be going out to see the new Marvel movie opening weekend. And flabbergasted as I wanted to see if there was more to this. So I put up a Twitter poll, and I'm freaking shocked, guys, with almost 4,000 votes. It is literally about 50-50 with people that will not be going to see Guardians of the Galaxy opening weekend. So let's talk about what the frick is happening here and how it's going to affect Marvel moving forward. Are we seeing the tipping point of Marvel movie fatigue? And is there a way forward for Marvel Studios in which they can recapture the zeitgeist and get everybody excited about these movies again? Smash a freaking like on this video and let's begin. So what's the deal here? What's going on with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Well, the early tracking for the movie saw it opening between 100 and 130 million domestic. That was a couple of weeks ago, and this was reported in the Hollywood trades, which are notoriously pretty good at this tracking thing. Now, a lot of folks immediately took note of the fact that this would make the opening domestic weekend for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 lower than what the opening weekend was for Volume 2. And that's not a good look, but at the end of the day, that's not anything too bad. However, in the following weeks, the projections got even worse. Now the movie's projected around 100 million domestic, and some people are saying it might not even make $100 million opening weekend in the domestic freaking box office. That would be insane. Now, this is especially concerning when you consider how front-loaded Marvel movies seem to be these days. I mean, consider the fact that Quantumania opened to the biggest box office out of that franchise, out of all of the different Ant-Man films, and yet it ended up making less money than all of them. Quantumania is the lowest box office performing Ant-Man film. So yeah, this is not freaking good, and I do wonder what Marvel is thinking as they look at these projections. However, before we get all doom and gloom, I do want to bring up the fact that the world premiere is happening any day now, depending on when we get this video released, and it is very possible that as the Rotten Tomatoes score comes out, if that score is incredibly high, you could see these box office projections going up. Unfortunately, it is the case that a Rotten Tomatoes score seems to hold major weight in whether or not families are willing to go out to the movie theaters, especially in those early release weekends. Now, interestingly, Marvel took a really unique strategy here with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in that there's already been a big premiere for this film, but it was in France. So there are technically reviews out there circulating right now, all of them translated from French into English, but a lot of people think that they did this to try to get positive reviews already out there in the zeitgeist so that the people that go to the world premiere are more apt to give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a better score, thus creating a better Rotten Tomatoes score. So it's just a little weird, and it does feel like Marvel Studios is trying to hedge their bets with this Rotten Tomatoes score, and I think that's because they do realize this is going to impact that opening weekend pretty significantly. But I guess the natural question is like, what is going on? Like, why is this happening? And the first thing I want to address here is comic book movie fatigue and a little bit of like Marvel movie fatigue. And this was something that a lot of people brought up when I was doing my live stream and also on that Twitter thread when I was asking that poll on Twitter. And so a lot of people are claiming that they have fatigue of these kind of movies. And I keep hearing people say like, I'm just waiting at this point for Doctor Doom or the X-Men or that thing I'm really looking forward to. And I think underneath all of this, what's really going on is a lot of fans are sort of tired of stories and comic book movies that feel really formulaic, that are not adding anything new, fresh. Now, it could be a character people are really excited to see, or some kind of crazy plot that would be like really wild. A lot of movies in Marvel's Phase 4, and even movies coming out from other studios in the past couple of years that are comic booky, almost all feel like they're coming out of the 90s comic book era or the Phase 1 MCU films. And it really just feels like audiences are kind of moved past that. Like they've grown beyond that. Their tastes are now for something different. And it's also incredibly difficult to make something wildly compelling after a movie like Avengers Endgame, which is something that even James Gunn has addressed in his different interviews doing press for this film. Marvel is in a really weird spot where it feels like we're almost doing filler arcs here, and we've really taken a step back in doing innovative, mind-blowing things to make Marvel very much must see in the movie theaters and on Disney Plus. And honestly, when it comes to Disney Plus, I unfortunately think this is a really big part of the problem. A lot of the Disney Plus shows are just the Marvel formula split up and done via episodes on Disney Plus. And I think what that did to a lot of fans over the past couple of years was give them so much of that familiar Marvel formula that it's grown a little tiresome. I think people are kind of over the super jokey, oh, we're going to do all this checklisty type stuff, and oh my goodness, big bad at the end. It's some weird way Disney Plus, which was supposed to help bolster the brands of Marvel and Star Wars, has actually done a ton of damage to each one of those brands, but that's like a whole separate video. Now, there's another big factor when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that I think ties closely into this fatigue idea, and that's the fact that Volume 3 feels like a movie that's out of time. It feels like this is a film we should have seen years ago, and that's probably because it is a movie we should have seen years ago. Of course, James Gunn had his firing from Disney due to his past controversial tweets, and that put the trajectory of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 into chaos. Gunn famously goes over to DC, creates Peacemaker, does his Suicide Squad movie, and now, of course, he is taking over the entirety of DC and what they're going to be doing in shows, movies, and video games. But he had this story and he had this script years and years and years ago. And I think back then, when the Marvel Cinematic Universe felt way more connected, we didn't have all these crazy new characters and really weird stuff going on, a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 would have felt a little bit more cozy. It would have felt a little bit closer to that endgame story, and therefore still dealing with the impact of all of that different kind of stuff. Gunn has already said this movie has nothing to do with the multiverse, and so it's likely very similar to whatever version of the movie he wrote before he was even fired. So this is literally a movie out of time. We should have had this movie years ago. And I think that's made all the more weird because Marvel is making all these promises of the multiverse saga, variants and secret wars and all this crazy stuff that we are frankly really excited for, but this movie's not going to touch any of that. James Gunn has already come out and said this has nothing to do with Kang. This has nothing to do with the multiverse. It's just the third chapter and somewhat of a goodbye for these characters. And really, the more I thought about it, the more I realized, at least for me, I think those are the two big factors that have kind of killed my hype for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I am definitely going to see this movie opening weekend, and I do expect it to be a pretty good movie. Like I expect it to actually be really good, maybe better than a lot of the Marvel movies that we've seen in the past couple of years. But I'm not sure that the performance in the box office is going to match up with that. We might be at this weird tipping point where this could actually be one of the best Marvel movies ever made and perform very badly for all kinds of factors that are outside of the film. frankly, what Marvel has been doing with all of its other content, the promises that they have made, and the error they have made in delaying this movie until now. And I guess an even bigger question here is like, what does this mean for Marvel? I mean, what are they gonna do if this movie underperforms in the box office? And I gotta tell you, man, I'm pretty worried about Kevin Feige and all the team over at Marvel Studios. They are already dealing with so much craziness, as I said in the intro, with the Jonathan Majors situation, with a lot of critics turning on them, with a lot of the fan base turning on them. It's just a weird time for Marvel right now. And I think they are going to turn this thing around. I think a lot of the stuff that they have coming out in 2024 seems awesome. It seems like it's going tonally in a direction that I think fans will really appreciate. It really does feel like maybe returning back to the magic of Marvel Studios. But that's an entire year away. And we've already had years of pretty mid Marvel content. And so 2024 having some lackluster movies, like it's possible all these movies will underperform and really turn off a lot of fans. And wow, hopefully the Disney Plus shows are pretty freaking awesome to sort of carry the weight of the fandom, because if those shows are bad as well, at the end of 2024, you will have had many difficult years for Marvel Studios, and they will absolutely have to win some of their fans back. Like, I just don't know any other way to say it. Like, I think at this point, Marvel is in for a rough 2024, and then they need to have several years of catching dub after dub to win back a lot of fans that have already checked out, or at the very least are skeptical of this content ever getting back to the quality that we had in the Infinity Saga. Like, this is a really crazy problem, and we're gonna see, how does Kevin Feige respond to that? And I think weirdly, the fact that Feige is such a good friend of James Gunn, and he just wants James Gunn to be able to like do his last Marvel movie and say goodbye to the Guardians, might stop him, or it might have already stopped him from forcing any crazy multiverse stuff into this movie. I can already hear a comment reply guy saying, well, that's great. I don't want that. I just want the movie to be good. And I understand what you are saying there, comment guy. But at the end of the day, if this hurts Marvel overall because it feels so disconnected from everything that everybody checks out and the movie bombs, it doesn't help anybody. That's not good for anyone. And frankly, I'm thinking a lot about the Marvels, which apparently is a crazy disaster behind the scenes, but Feige is hell-bent on fixing it, on making major changes to the movie so that it's way more mass appeal by the time it releases in November. And it seems like he was unwilling to do that for Guardians 3. We'll see how it all shakes out, man. But I'm telling you, this might end up being a very rough year for Marvel, a year in which they're going to take some major brand damage, and then in the next couple of years moving forward, they're gonna have to build back that trust with fans with incredible content to get people excited again for the next 2 Avengers films. Let me know in the comment section, are you going to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 opening weekend? Are you going to see it in the movie theater in general? What do you think's going on with Marvel right now? Smash a like on this video if you liked it. If you want to watch more, why not check out this video I recently did talking about how Disney changed the ending of The Mandalorian Season 3. It's pretty spicy.